All right, good day, my friends. Welcome to the Pain and Performance Podcast. Thanks for joining me. And today we're going to dive into everything related to hydration. I've gotten a bunch of questions from y'all about this, and we really want to pay attention to what we're putting in our body in all ways, but hydration is incredibly important, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions around it. So today's episode is going to answer a bunch of the questions that y'all have had. We're going to talk about the importance of hydration, how to do it, what do you actually need to do? Do you actually just need to drink more water, or do we have some fine tuning to that recommendation? So without further ado, let's take a look. So when we look at hydration, I think it's more than just drinking water. Hydration is this vital kind of component to supporting all of the body functions. Without hydration, we die. All of our cells die. So it's really important to maintaining optimal health. And in this episode, what we're going to do is explore the science of hydration. We're going to go through some practical strategies to improve hydration. And we're going to go through the effects of both dehydration and proper hydration. So I hope you're excited, and grab your bottle of water. Let's dive in. So if we look at the significance of proper hydration for the functions inside the body, water is essential for life. Proper hydration is crucial for maintaining the health and function of every cell in your body. So water plays a very fundamental role in a bunch of body functions, including like your temperature regulation. So water helps to regulate your body temperature through perspiration, evaporative cooling, preventing overheating and heat-related problems. So a lot of the people who have difficulty regulating body temperature, what we start with is, are you getting enough water? Are you absorbing enough water? That kind of takes us to the next one, which is nutrient transport. So adequate hydration ensures that we can actually transport nutrients such as vitamins, minerals, oxygen, all of that stuff that you need to get to all of your cells for everything to function well. Your muscles, your nerves, your brain, your immune cells, everything relies on us being able to transport these proper nutrients throughout the body. And hydration is the main way that we can improve that. So it supports the delivery of all these essential nutrients to the cells, and then it helps to actually remove the waste products, these damaging products that our body produces. We actually have to get those out of the tissues, and hydration creates the open highway, so to speak, to clear those. Digestion and absorption of food and nutrients. Water is actually essential for the proper digestion and breakdown of food. So it helps to break down the molecules in food so that the nutrients that you're getting or you're trying to get from your food actually get into your body. And if we don't have that, the food kind of does, it slows it in two ways. One, we don't have the energy in our cells to break down the food through digestion, and that food doesn't move through the digestive system very well. So it really does inhibit a lot of proper nutrition because we're just not able to get the nutrients and we're not able to move it through the system. Your joints, the joint lubrication and muscle function is huge with hydration. I'd say if there's one thing that you'll take away from this, if you start to improve hydration, you'll notice how much better your body, your physical body feels. Your muscles, your joints, your nerves. Hydration plays a really important role in maintaining joint health. So it helps to kind of lubricate and cushion the joint. So like the shock absorbing abilities. Whenever you look at a lot of these joint support supplements, what they're doing is pulling water into the cells inside your joint, and that really does kind of improve the motion and lubrication inside the joint. So it helps a lot to make those joints really move and feel good. If you're someone who is in the arthritic or degenerative world, you've been told that you have some of that stuff, one of your major focuses is going to be hydration to improve it. We've talked a little bit about waste removal, but sufficient water intake is vital for helping our kidneys function really well. So like the waste products that go through our body that we actually want to clear out have to get through the kidneys sufficiently, and hydration is what's going to get them there. So it really does help to kind of flush out toxins and promote, healthy kidney function. So that is basically the major parts that we're going to notice whenever we're paying attention to what hydration does: temperature regulation, nutrient transport, digestion, joint and muscle function, and waste removal. So how often, one of the things I had a question about whenever we were starting to research this is how many people are actually suffering from dehydration or just lack of proper hydration, optimal hydration. And so we started pulling some research and looking across the world. So not just in America, but there was a study done by the American Journal of Public Health that estimated 75% of Americans have a chronic hydration problem. So they have inadequate daily water intake. So all those things that we just talked about that we have to have water and hydration to do, 75% of Americans are not getting proper function in those areas. So it really kind of shocked me when I saw that. I figured this number was high, but then you look in Europe, European Food Safety Authority put out a study where they found somewhere in the 50 to 60% of European adults are not adequately hydrated. So that's a bit better, but we still see a very big issue in terms of hydration. And then when we look at what does that cause, even mild dehydration has been shown to impair cognitive performance, mood, hormone regulation, physical performance, on top of all of the actual inside mechanisms that we were talking about. The very real things that you feel is like those people who are feeling sluggish and you just don't feel mentally there. You're kind of having these mood swings. You don't have good hormone regulation. Physically, you don't feel like you're moving really well. Your muscles, your joints just seem to be aching a lot. Those are signs of dehydration. And if we're talking 50, 60, 70% of people dealing with it, how big of a problem is that relating to those same numbers of people who are dealing with chronic pain? So it really is a major thing that we want to fix when we're looking at the importance of hydration and the potential kind of widespread impact of dehydration across all these areas of our health. In terms of what the science of hydration is, water is this amazing substance that really does play a critical role in maintaining kind of the health and balance of all these body functions. But I don't think a lot of people have looked at what happens when water comes in our body and how does it support all these cellular processes. So one thing I'd like to do before we really get going is to take a quick little dive into the science of hydration and how it does impact our health on a number of different levels. So if we look at when we drink water, basically what happens, it goes through our system, goes through the stomach. It's primarily absorbed in the small intestines through a process called osmosis. So these water molecules move through the intestinal lining into the bloodstream. And then in the bloodstream, they replenish the water content of blood. And that gets transported to the cells throughout our body. And that proper cellular hydration is essential for maintaining optimal cell function in every cell that we have, including what we've talked about already: nutrient uptake, waste removal, general cell health, and cell functioning. And what we see in the research is that the water moving across these cell membranes and ensuring efficient cellular hydration significantly changes the lifespan and the function of those cells in every part of our body. So really, really important to get it in. If we look at what it does from a scientific standpoint to, let's say, it gets in there, it gets absorbed, and it goes to the brain, what it does in the brain is that it creates the cushion and the space around the brain, and it helps us to get the blood flow, the oxygen delivery, and the nutrients into the brain. So it's essential for proper brain function and to keep the structure of the brain, all of the neurons in the brain healthy. And when we look at that on a data standpoint, there's been quite a few studies, again, that show dehydration negatively impacts cognitive performance, especially tasks that are requiring like attention and working memory. So when you're talking to someone and you're trying to think of the name of somebody, the name of a substance, the place you went to eat, that working recall is very, very dependent on hydration. And they've found that mild dehydration, this is like 1 or 2% body weight, led to significant reductions in cognitive performance. So if you're sweating and you're losing that weight, you'll start to notice, I'm a little sluggish mentally. I'm not making good decisions. I'm fatigued. I don't feel as alert and paying attention to all the things around me. And a lot of that is, let's improve hydration. Another area that gets really, really significantly impacted by your hydration is one that we all talk about a lot, is performance, exercise, physical performance. So when we look at hydration for the functions inside the body, basically all the physiological processes related to physical activity are improved by adequate hydration. So if we don't have the water in those cells, then what's going to happen is a lot of the perceived exertion that you're going to have when you're trying to exercise is going to be much higher. So if you're dehydrated, the same weight is going to feel heavier, basically. And if we look at the thermoregulation of our muscles, there's been a lot of research, and a lot of you have kind of reached out to me on cooling to improve physical performance. And we've talked a lot about cryotherapy on here. But there's been quite a bit of research that even cooling down your bloodstream as you're exercising, running cold water over your hands, it improved physical performance. One of the things that staying adequately hydrated does is that it improves your thermoregulation. So it improves you getting your body temperature too elevated too fast when you start to exercise. So I think this is a big part of why we see people's strength, speed, and power improve whenever they're adequately hydrated. So it's what, everybody looks for these quick hacks. Staying hydrated before you do that can be just as powerful as, doing some of these little cooling gloves or cooling wrist guards. If you do those, I would argue without the hydration, I think you're skipping over the big impact to get the little tiny 1% change. So it really is something that we should pay more attention to if physical performance, optimal performance, sports is on your list. And a lot of that does come also, so that's your power athlete, from your endurance athlete. If we're looking at cardiovascular function, the more hydrated you are, the easier it is for your heart to get blood and oxygen to all of your tissues. So when we're looking at, can you overhydrate leading up to a day of a race? Absolutely. But adequate hydration is completely performance enhancing leading up to it. So we don't want to just be drinking. We're going to get to a bunch of the actual tips here in a minute. We don't want to just be piling in a bunch of water. We want to do this the right way, but it definitely is a big part of your performance if you're an endurance athlete, of allowing your heart and your muscles to function better with less effort. So we'll come back to that. When we're looking at kidney function, we talked about earlier how important hydration is at removing waste products from the body. Anytime we're breaking down oxygen, you're creating byproducts, but also we're constantly taking in nutrients and food that have little waste products. Cells are breaking down as we go through. We need to clear out those components. Our immune system is going in and breaking down damage and rebuilding healthy tissue. That creates waste products. We don't want these things building up in our body. We need to get them out. And that happens primarily, I know a lot of people have heard about what this is doing, go sweat it out and all that. But primarily the way that we get rid of those waste products is going to be through kidney function. And so we really do want to ensure sufficient blood flow to the kidneys and get that filter. That's our kidney. It's that filtration system to eliminate those wastes through urine. So I know a lot of you say when you start kind of increasing at least water consumption, we're kind of fussing about I'm going to the bathroom. But if you think of that as, every time we're doing that, we're improving that filtration and we're clearing out some of these waste products. That kind of tweak in thinking makes it a little less burdensome. We can talk about kind of the overhydration that happens if we're clearing out and what that means and what you want to do to fix it. But the American Journal of Kidney Diseases emphasizes like proper hydration is essential for preventing kidney stones, for kidney disease, and they found that higher urine volume dilutes stone forming substances. So basically you improve all levels of kidney health by staying hydrated. Another big area, and I have seen this in my practice specifically, is pain and pain perception. Is how bad is the pain that you're feeling? So adequate hydration is one of the big things when someone comes in and we get a few sessions in that we want to start talking about with patients, because what we're talking about, I could not find a study on pain and levels of dehydration. But if we look at the levels of dehydration throughout the general population and all of the impacts of dehydration on how our body functions, if there's a time that we want to remain adequately hydrated and we want to really optimize our hydration, it is going to be when you're trying to heal. So the impact not only on the healing process, because you're improving delivery of nutrients and oxygen throughout your body, and you're going to improve the healing process significantly. There's quite a few studies that show that you improve nutrients, oxygen, cell growth, collagen synthesis, the formation of new blood vessels so you can get more of these good nutrients and oxygen to the tissues, is all happening when we stay hydrated, and improves the healing process and tissue regeneration during the healing process. So incredibly important. You even look at pain perception, and what they found is that dehydration amplifies the sensation of pain. So even if your body's going through the healing process and you're dehydrated, you're going to feel pain more, and you're making it harder for your body to heal. Both of these are not a good combination if we're going through the healing process. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I am in a healing process, I'm doing regenerative therapy, I'm doing physical therapy, I want to kind of optimize my body's function. Well, hydration for anyone in the healthcare world is going to be very high on your priority list. The major stuff when we look at those is we've got to start somewhere. We've got to create a framework around getting hydration into the cells. And I think that makes it a little bit different, because when we think of hydration, a lot of people think of just drink more water. If you just drink more water, then you're going to absorb all of it and you're going to function and it's going to be great. What we're going to dive into is the actual science around ways to increase hydration and like what is happening whenever we try and absorb the water. So let's go through initially. I know a lot of times we do this at the end, but what I'm going to do is go through some significant ways for you to increase your hydration. And then we're going to go to the downstream effects of doing some of these things and the science of doing them. But let's go through. So get the pen and paper out for this. I'm going to kind of dive into the significant ways that we increase hydration or can increase hydration. So the first one that I want to start with is drinking first thing in the morning. And we always recommend that you put a little sea salt in there. I like Himalayan sea salt. And we're getting about 12 ounces of water right whenever you wake up. So if you start your day with a glass of water that has some sea salt, what you're doing is right away, we're giving all those cells that hydration after we have not had water intake for 6 to 8 hours, ideally 8 if you're healing. We need a lot of sleep. The sea salt does contain electrolytes. You get sodium, you get magnesium, potassium, all these trace minerals, especially like Himalayan sea salt, really, really helpful to add, a little half a teaspoon to 12 ounces of water, stir it up a little bit so it improves. Not only does it improve the water transport into your cells, but it also gives us all those minerals that we need to function at a really high level in terms of nerves, muscles, cells. All of those minerals and nutrients are vital for the function of muscles, nerves, all of these things. You've got to have that transport. So first thing in the morning, we want to support our adrenal system. And that's when that's starting to get activated. So that's what we want to feed right away. This is one of the reasons you hear a lot of people saying, start your morning with hydration and circle back to the coffee idea. Coffee acts on your adenosine system, and that should kick in later in the morning. So we want to support the body in its natural functions. So going through and kind of timing these things correctly can really mean a lot of improvements in how they function. And that's just a matter of tapping into kind of our body's natural circadian rhythm. And you do have some research that says you will improve hydration and fluid retention inside the cells if we do it with electrolytes and nutrients. We're going to come back to that. That's going to be a big thing, because when we look at improving hydration, it's not only getting that water in and adding some of the nutrients to it. Almost the flip side of this is really valuable, where you're getting in the nutrients and the water comes with it. So that would be consuming very hydrating foods. So a lot of our foods that probably people talk about having low nutrient value have a very high water content. So when you look at fruits, a lot of vegetables, certain meats, depending on how they're prepared, certain nuts. In fact, we have, if you go to derrickhines.com/hydration, we have a shopping list of like what are the best hydrating foods that you can get. But incorporating these hydrating foods into your diet can really support your body's water balance. We're going to talk about why the water that you may get from certain foods is possibly better than the water that you're going to drink. Speaking of, so some of my favorites, cucumbers are really, really good. Oranges, strawberries, lettuce, celery, cashews are another good one. But yeah, go to derrickhines.com/hydration and you'll see a big shopping list on there that is all like these really optimal hydration foods. Green smoothies are one of my favorite ways to check all of these boxes. When you are getting a lot of greens in a kind of a smoothie or a green drink, as we call them, you're getting the best of both worlds, because you're absorbing a lot of the water that comes from the food, along with the water if you use it to make the smoothie in a better way. So both of them are going to be better absorbed. I think this is one of the things we should all do. Started doing this a while back. Everything that we talked about feels better. You feel better mentally. You feel better physically. Your digestive tract feels better. Greens, like, we'll do spinach, kale. You can look at a lot of the different types of extracts. A lot of the green drinks that we pull in are like alfalfa sprouts, broccoli sprouts are in there. Chia seeds, we're going to come back to, because it's really, really a great improving thing to add to your water. So let's go back to where we're at here. So if we can get that green smoothie in, I like to do that kind of, fairly early in the day to get you off on that right track. So I think kind of perfect would be that we're waking up, depending on your dietary habits, we're getting that glass of water in, and then we're getting a green smoothie in somewhere in there. Another thing that I think doesn't quite get talked about as much as I think it should, and we're going to kind of dive into it here, is delivery of these hydration molecules throughout the body. And so a lot of that comes from movement, stretching, exercise, walking. Stimulating blood flow is really important for overall fluid balance. So, the physical movement helps to optimize and distribute the water throughout our body. It really does enhance the cellular hydration with the fluid that you've taken in. So when we look at that in research, what we find is that like exercise induced sweating with the appropriate fluid intake contributes to better hydration than that fluid intake without the activity. And what that's telling us is like when we are being active and we're taking in the proper amounts of water in the proper methods, we're delivering that to the cells where they need to go. It's not just kind of quote unquote going straight through us. We're using that stuff and it's going to the muscles, the nerves, the brain, the joints. I think we need the movement part so our body knows why we have taken in these water molecules. There was a study done also in the Journal of Sports Science that showed that stretching exercise improved tissue hydration with proper water intake. So that improves overall flexibility significantly. And if you will tune in, I forget if it's going to be out already, but it'll be very soon. The full podcast on stretching with Dr. Claude Tremblay, we talk a lot about one of the major effects of stretching is the hydration of all of the tissues that allow us to move, not just our muscles, but our ligaments, our tendons, our joints. So this research tells us that's great. That's very important, but we have to add the hydration component, or even getting that stuff moving is going to probably use more hydration and start to stimulate the need for us to take in more water. All this is good. I think knowing the right type of water is quite important. So what kind of water should we take in? There's something called, stick with me for a second. There's a guy named Dr. Gerald Pollack who identified something that he called exclusionary zone water. This is basically water that had molecules that kind of coalesce, so they squeeze out larger particles outside of themselves. What that means is the water was basically filtering itself. So when he looked at this, they could see under the kind of like, microscope that this water was acting different. It had more density to it and more oxygen molecules in there than typical water. And the biggest difference that they found to this exclusionary zone water was that because of the change in density, it actually created a negative charge inside the molecule. This is important because if we look at that negative charge, it improves cellular function. It also improved the EMG function, that electromagnetic transfer of energy that allows all of our cells to communicate, our nerves to communicate with our muscles, our brain neurons to send signals to one another. And that does go back and make a lot of sense in terms of what we find in the research in cognitive function. So when we look at that, water has this very specific structure to it, but not all water has the same structure. And some of you may have seen some of these studies where they, use like regular running water to water plants, and then water that has been sitting, in bottles and water plants, and the outcome is very different. They've done these pictures under the microscope, whether they took pictures very, very close to the water, and the environment that the water came from changes the structure to it. I think this is what Dr. Pollack was noticing. And whenever they looked at the structured water, as some people will call it, it seems to have better properties for not only hydration, but actual function inside the body. Our cells use it, and it has more bioavailability than unstructured water. This is still a little bit kind of in the I guess, woo-woo world, if you want to call it that. But when you start digging into the research around this, there does appear to be quite the difference if we're using this natural, whether you call it structured water or exclusionary zone water. The main takeaway from that is, where do we find these things? So you can get actual structured water today. You can go online and look for structured water, and there's places and people who are doing this and creating it. You can also get structured water from food very, very well. Iceberg lettuce is very high in structured water in this exclusionary zone type water. Bone broth, very high in this exclusionary zone type water. A lot of the water that you get from fruits and vegetables are also going to give you this, better or enhanced version of water. So there's still some kind of ongoing debate, and we're still trying to study like the benefits of different structures of water. But I think if we really get down to it, the more natural and the better that the structure is for absorbing, the better we're going to get the outcomes from. So that's like the type that we should get. We should start looking for these natural, free-flowing, structured types of water. We should make sure that we're going back and we're getting water from, kind of the foods that we take in, doing the green smoothies, making sure we're taking in water that has minerals. Mineral water, really important if you're doing other types of waters, like purified water, making sure that you're adding minerals back to it. There's a lot of companies out there doing it. Himalayan sea salt's my go-to, but I do love Element. We've tried quite a few other ones. Liquid IV, a lot of people see, but getting that water with the components, with the nutrients that it would naturally be found with, definitely improves it. Adding the movement in whenever you're hydrating so that you're getting the delivery of not only the water, but the nutrients to your cells really improves the ability for you to hydrate properly. So those are some of the initial ways of making sure we're getting the right type of water in. We also want to pay attention to absorbing the water. So can you absorb it correctly? The structure of water, the water molecules, as we were talking about, can really impact their absorption or movement across those cellular membranes. And that structure does definitely change the absorption properties, but we do need to kind of dive deeper into some of that stuff. We need more research around that topic. I'd say in the short term, it's if everything is equal and you have access to it, then we might as well go with something that's going to present some upside. And I think the research around structure and having a negative charge and a denser water molecule is going to be better. Another thing that affects the absorption of water is the electrolytes in there. Sodium, potassium, and magnesium play a really important role in water absorption into the cells. So maintaining proper hydration not only requires that we're getting the water, the hydrogen and oxygen, but all of the nutrients and electrolytes that often get absorbed into those things. That helps us to balance fluid levels inside the body and facilitate the movement of water across the cell membranes so that it's getting into the cells and it's hydrating the actual cells. So whether that's immune cells, brain cells, muscle cells, cartilaginous cells, cartilage in the knees, synovial fluid, all of these things, we need to not only get the water into the bloodstream, but get it into the tissues. And that's where this kind of electrolyte component plays a very big role. So another thing that affects water absorption is some of the environmental factors of the water. High temperatures, humidity, and altitude can increase fluid loss through like sweating, breathing. If we increase the urine output, of course, over time, certainly if we're doing that from a hormonal level, if you want to call it that, such as alcohol or substances, those can certainly affect hydration levels. Physical activity is also a big one. I remember during football games, we would see sometimes like 5 to 10 pounds in certain people, changing their body weight at the end of a football game. That's all water loss. And that's the combination of all of these things: physical activity, environmental factors, heat, exercise. So it is one of those things that our body does lose water through sweating. We have to make sure that we're properly hydrating whenever we increase that to maintain our fluid balance. So also for digestion, as we've talked about, the health of the digestive tract is incredibly important. And the integrity of our gut lining is actually one of the major things that gets affected whenever we're dehydrated. So the presence of these digestive enzymes can influence water absorption and vice versa. So if we don't have hydration, the enzymes in our gut are not going to function as well. And if the enzymes in our gut are not functioning well, we're going to have a more difficult time absorbing water. So both of those are areas that we do want to pay attention to. Digestive disorders are one of the things that I think we see a lot of dehydration come from in those populations. So very important to make sure we're checking those levels out and getting our gut checked out. That's probably for a different podcast, but people with celiac disease, Crohn's disease, any GI infections and stuff like that, you really need to pay attention to your hydration if you're in that category. But let's jump into kind of the utilization once we absorb the water. So the water goes in, it goes into our digestive tract, goes through the small intestines and starts to get into our body. What does it do? If we break this up into a couple of areas, how can we improve the function of the body by utilizing the water that we absorb? We're going to start with exercise and physical activity because I think it's one of the ones that we see a huge difference with. If we're adequately hydrated, performance can be improved. I would go in the order of 10 to 20% from a dehydrated person to a hydrated person. That same person performing whatever their sport is, dehydrated versus adequately and well hydrated, can be a 10 to 20% change in performance, which is not a small number. That's massive. During the physical activity, like we were talking about, all of the things that happen improve our physical function. And there's some ways to do that work really well. One of the ones, I think, if we're taking in water, and we're going to go through the plan here in a little bit of exactly what that should look like, of improving hydration. But one thing, as you're going through and you're taking in, you're eating the right foods, you're drinking the right types of water, we're adding the right nutrients to it. The activities that we do around that are important in terms of hydrating the tissues. In our office, we use something called Katsu, and you'll have likely listened to our update with Stephen Muñatones, who's the CEO of Katsu Global already. I think that episode comes out right before this. And we talk a lot about the benefits of blood flow restriction therapy. And what blood flow restriction therapy is, go back and listen to that episode. It's a really good one. But it applies a slight little compression around the limb, which slows blood flow out of the tissues back to the heart. And what that does is that kicks on a lot of our mechanisms for growth hormone, for muscle development, tendon, ligament health. One of the things that happens with that is that it slows and holds the fluid in those tissues longer. So if we combine proper hydration, doing the plan that we're going to go through with blood flow restriction therapy, with Katsu, the tissue hydration is going to improve dramatically. Now, I would say for all of our people who are doing that, that also means it's incredibly important for you to hydrate while you are doing Katsu or blood flow restriction therapy, because you need that component to really kick in the deep benefits of something like that. But there has been quite a few studies that show combining blood flow restriction therapy with hydration promotes muscle protein synthesis, muscle growth, and improved performance. So these two together really allows us to use our hydration in a physical standpoint very well. Fascia health is another one that we wanted to look at with this. Is like the fascia is the covering of the muscle and the connective tissues. This is where fascia is not just this covering. There's a lot of kind of fluid motion through the fascia. And it does play a very big role in movement. It creates a little bit of structure to our muscle. You think of our muscles kind of running in these predictable patterns. The reason those muscles are like that is because the fascia keeps them organized. So proper hydration is very important for supporting the health and flexibility of fascia. So all these people who you see online that are talking about, fascial change and breaking up fascial adhesions and use this great tool to improve fascia health, this is not the place to discuss whether that's possible or not. But the only way that we can improve that is if we are improving the hydration of the fascia. If we're not improving the hydration of the fascia, then we can just give up on using all of the little tools that we see. So it is very, very important to maintain adequate hydration if we're having any tissue issues, scar tissue, fascia restriction, any of that stuff is very, very important for us to get the water in so that those tissues can move and glide and slide. And the same thing if we're talking about improving flexibility. So we just did the giant episode that'll come out after this on stretching, and I definitely encourage you to listen to all the research and the functions around actually improving your mobility. That's going to be a great one. Dr. Claude and I really geeked out on all the science of stretching, but hydration plays a very big role in maintaining and improving joint flexibility, muscle flexibility, the suppleness and stretchiness, so to speak, of the muscle and connective tissues. So if you're listening to this and someone has told you you need to stretch more, that's the physical change. The internal change is you need to hydrate. Because if you're not adequately hydrated, then you can't get those muscles moving and those tissues moving and the tendons and ligaments moving the way that they're supposed to. There's not a ton of supporting evidence relating to hydration and stretching just because the studies don't appear to have been done. I would love for somebody to reach out if they are looking at doing some of this or you've come across some evidence in terms of adding hydration to a stretching routine. But when we look at the science underneath it and the mechanisms inside the cells, we know that we have to be stretching if we're going to adequately use the hydration that we are taking in. Another thing that falls into the same lines of if I'm increasing my hydration and I want to use this better, I want the water, I want the nutrients to get through my body easier, we need to look at lymphatic drainage. I think it's a really big one that if the bucket is full, it's really hard for my body to want to go and send more nutrients and hydration and water to that area. And so going through and doing lymphatic drainage, whether that's going and doing lymphatic drainage therapy, going and doing some submersion, doing some, I think this is one of the reasons that aquatics is so good is that you get in there and the hydrostatic pressure of the water helps with lymphatic drainage. We use some lymphatic drainage devices where we put the boots on the arms and legs and it kind of squeezes all the lymph back up through the body so your lymphatics are clearing, and now our body can replenish that with this freshly oxygenated nutrient fluid as we're adequately hydrating. So I think if you're taking it in and we're trying to optimize the amount of water delivery to the tissues, going through and doing some lymphatic drainage can really make the most of the water that you're taking in. Another thing that falls on this level in terms of kind of increasing the utilization of the water that you take in is starting to add in some stuff like sauna, cryotherapy, and something called micro movements. The reason that we say that, so people would hear sauna and say, well, that's going to dehydrate you. You're going to sweat. And that is true. But that also means that your body, when you come behind that and you start rehydrating and you're rehydrating properly, that means that you're going to actually really deliver that back into the tissues because your body wants it. And it shows our body why we're doing it. So I think it can be really helpful to kind of exercise that system. Cryotherapy is great because it acts as like a test for us. We squeeze down a lot of these blood vessels and we pull, kind of similar to what Katsu does in the muscles, but cryotherapy does that in the organs. We pull all that blood around the organs and we rehydrate a lot of these deeper tissues because our body says, I need to compress and constrict all the blood vessels to the non-important areas and pull that blood around the important areas. And so we have more time for deeper delivery of hydrating substances in the organs. Really, really important. So if we can go through some of these things, it can really help with delivery of the hydrating molecules in the body. So if we're looking at like, let's not just start taking in more water, let's actually use that stuff. That's where this becomes important. And that's why I say that this subject is, it seems on the surface, drink more water, and there's so much more to it than just drinking more water. Micro movements was something that I thought was really interesting. A lot of people have seen these research articles where it's like just these little movements that we can do a lot throughout the day. There's a big study on what they called like a soleus push-up, which is just a heel raise. People are just kind of raising and lowering their heel while they were sitting. And I think they had the participants do that for like 4 hours a day. So they just kept bouncing their heels up. You've seen those people. These little micro movements have been shown because it's constantly moving fluid in and out to significantly improve the delivery of water into the tissues. So it's like, it's just a simple thing of as you sitting there and doing, micro movements throughout the day that actually uses the water that you're taking in. And again, it's getting delivered. We're using that to improve the function of the water. We're not just drinking water and hydrating for basically, no good reason, if you will. Another big area that we have to talk about if we're talking about the effects of hydration is the anti-aging, the skin health that comes along with it. So if we dive into kind of the anti-aging stuff, a lot of you have probably seen these before and after of somebody increasing, hey, I started drinking a gallon a day and now, here's how good my skin looks. It really does play a very important role in improving the collagen and the elasticity of the skin. So it hydrates it, it reduces the appearance of wrinkles, it improves the repair and breakdown of damaged collagen, it improves skin elasticity. So just hydrating can be the facelift, the non-surgical facelift that a lot of people are looking for. And if we kind of keep going with some of that stuff, it does improve the barrier of the skin. So when skin gets that really, really dry appearance and it's not well hydrated, our skin is supposed to protect us from the outside environment, and it loses the ability to do that. So we're inviting more risk into our lives just because the skin is not well hydrated and is no longer as resilient as it should be. So, simple things that we can see, improving the skin hydration enhances the barrier function of the skin. So very good in terms of all levels of function, whether you're looking at muscle function, sports performance. If we're looking at beauty, skin gets us there. If we're looking at detoxification, hydration helps. If we're looking at mobility and strength, hydration is going to improve it. Physical activity, hydration improves it. If we're going through and talking about cognitive function and brain function, hydration improves it. So now what we want to know is, what do I do? How do we improve hydration? We've talked about all of the impact of dehydration and what proper hydration can improve. What do we do? So if we look at the data around this, what we would start with is saying we want to get a proper amount of water to break down the food that we need. One of the easy tools for this is we want basically, if you're eating, let's say 2,000 calories, you want to get 200 ounces of water. If you're eating 1,500 calories, you want to get 150 ounces of water. That 1-to-1 ratio gives us the molecular ability to absorb the food and the water at a really good rate. So that's your starting point. If you're looking for the basics of it, of the actual amount of water that you're going to take in, we're going to do a 1-to-1 ratio of of water to calories. The type of water matters. I would say in these situations, you want to get mineral water because it's going to be, for all the purpose we've already talked about on today's show, it's going to be better absorbed. But we also want, so that's our basis, mineral water, or if you're doing purified water, adding the minerals back in. We want to do a 1-to-1 ratio of ounces to, well, it's going to be a 1-to-10 ratio, I apologize, of ounces to calories. So 2,000 calories, 200 ounces of water. So if we keep on going, like, how do we do that? I would say there's a timing component that is important with this. So as soon as you wake up, right upon waking, we want to wake up and go and get about 12 ounces of water, 12 to 24 ounces. Start with 12 if you're not doing this now, with a pinch of sea salt in there. Use some Himalayan sea salt or an electrolyte powder if you want, right whenever you wake up. What I do with this is I prepare that before bed. I bring this whole large, I have like a, Yeti style cup that I prepare. I bring that with me to bed. I take my nightly supplements with just a few sips of water. I'm not drinking a ton. And then, it's got a lid on it. I have that there all night. As soon as I wake up, I've got my probably, for me, it's a 20 ounce, let's say 18 ounces of water prepared for me to drink right away. And so I'll wake up and sit up. I don't have to go anywhere. It's the first thing I do is to drink this. I'm not trying to, down it or drink it real fast. I'm just starting to drink that throughout the day. This practice helps jumpstart us. We're getting hydration right away. And it does a lot for kind of, supporting the adrenal function, as we've talked about today. The other thing we want to start to add in is the hydrating food. So after that, I think a really good thing is to kind of get your morning started instead of going, and drinking, coffee right away, is to go and get like a green juice. I've used a bunch. We have one called like Alani. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. I believe it's Alani. I've used Green 85 that we've talked about from Chemical Free Body from the podcast. Love that one. All of these, adding that at this point in time is going to double up. We're going to get the nutrients and we're going to start to get the delivery of water in a better capacity. And it's going to create more of that structure that our body wants to absorb, that density of the water that we want so we can get it in there. Some other hydrating foods, I'd say like a lot of your green vegetables are going to be very, very hydrating. Alfalfa sprouts are great. Cucumbers, as we've talked about, leafy greens, tomatoes. So again, go to derrickhines.com/hydration and you'll see my big shopping list and why all of those things are on there. So another thing that you can do as we're working to get that 1-to-10 ratio of ounces to calories is to set hydration reminders. I am busy. When I'm seeing patients, it's hard for me to get water in. So what I'll do is either have a staff member or a reminder on my phone to tell me at 10 o'clock, hey, drink some water. I know that sounds ridiculous, but when you get into focusing, if you don't have something that tells you this little small thing, you'll let it slip fairly easily. And, look, getting 200 ounces of water in, you need to be drinking periodically throughout the day, little batches of water. So it does ensure kind of regular spread out water intake, which is what we want to do. There are smart bottles and all that stuff. I have a really good water bottle that's like BPA free, all that good stuff that just has a little clicker on it. And it creates it really, really easy for you to be able to track how many times you have filled that water bottle up. Another really good tip at starting to meet that goal is start carrying hydration-friendly snacks. Carrying grapes, grabbing little vegetables, bell peppers, celery, Like we talked about, cashews, really, really good in structured water, really, really good content. So having your snacks be not only, healthy snacks, but hydrating snacks can be really beneficial, because now you're not going to these dehydrating foods, which a lot of snacks are. Like I talked about, carry a water bottle and bring water to bed. Carry a water bottle and I'll say the one thing that I would say that really helps with this is if you can start getting like a good covered, like Yeti style, stainless steel, water bottle, and start bringing that to bed and having that when you wake up, it really does start you off on that right track, so that you can get that hydration going in the right direction very, very quickly. And then another quick tip would be to start adjusting your water intake based on your activity. So, you increase water consumption whenever you're increasing the activity, and vice versa. You increase your hydration, increase your activity, increase hydration. Pair those together because of the reasons that we've talked about. It makes both of them better. It's one of these beautiful cycles that happens where if you're moving more, you're delivering more hydration to your tissues so they can function better, to your brain, to your muscles, all of that, all of the above. So start to pair your activity and your water intake, and you'll find that they both improve together. So those are the major things that you're going to look at throughout the day. Wake up, get some water in right away. Get your 12 ounces of water in with that little pinch of sea salt. Drink some good mineral water intermittently throughout the day, matching your number of calories to the water in that kind of 10-to-1 ratio. And going through and adding all of the hydrating foods that you can to your diet is really, really helpful for making sure that even if you miss that number, even if you miss the 10-to-1, 200 ounces of water in a day, then if you start to add in the foods that bring in really quality types of water, you're going to notice very good improvements in your hydration and how you feel. Add in a green drink or a green smoothie at the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day, and you're going to notice that improves significantly, like just getting you on the right track. And make sure that we're carrying that water bottle and you're adjusting based on activity. And I think if we do all of these things, you're going to start noticing that the improvement in body function, brain function, temperature regulation, nutrient transport, detoxification, your skin health, your joint health, your muscle health is all going to improve dramatically, and all of our organ function gets better. And so if we look at this from a longevity standpoint, it's going to help. Remember that hydration is vital for every part of your body, for every physiological process, for all of your cells, for your tissue health, for your brain health. We need to do it, and then start adding in these practical ways to increase hydration with the right type of water. Get the minerals in, add in the foods, start to create these little checkpoints throughout the day where you're checking, how am I doing? Am I on track to get the amount of water in? And then start using the water that you're taking in. Start doing some movement, start loosening up, start rolling out, start exercising, so that you're actually telling your body what to do with the water as you're taking it in. Start adding in a few things to challenge that. Start doing some blood flow restriction therapy. Use Katsu. Start doing some cryotherapy. Add sauna in. We've talked about sauna on here enough, but from this standpoint, add sauna in to stress that hydration system so that your body gets very good at absorbing the water that we're taking in. Start using micro movements throughout the day, and all of these will affect hydration and improve the absorption of the quality water that you're now taking in, and the water that you're getting from the foods that you're taking in. So if we're kind of going through all of this and you've gotten here, remember, proper hydration is a foundational element for overall health and well-being. If you don't have it, everything's going to be difficult. You're not going to feel good. And so understanding, hopefully this kind of helps you understand the science around hydration and all of the good ways that we can kind of improve some of that stuff. So I hope that helps. If you have questions about that, please hit me up. Thanks for sticking with me. I hope y'all have a great day.